Hello all, Uncle Jack's Horror Stories here. Please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. And above all, I hope you enjoy the video. I used to speak in the voice of storms. Now I mumble through cigarette smoke and whiskey breath, working the dead end, mostly meaningless jobs you'd expect of your standard PI. Between runaway teens, overbearing helicopter parents, and cheating spouses, I make enough to keep cigarettes in my jacket and keep the mostly watertight office in my name. My name was Raguel, an angel of the seven that watched over humanity. But if you ask the overweight suburban mom who'd just left my office, and whose 21-year-old daughter finally couldn't take it anymore and left town, my name is Ryan Smith, private investigator. Funny thing about falling, especially from the height that I did, is you don't land so much as sink slowly, bone by bone, until your reflection isn't even something you recognize anymore. The girl that came into my office, the Ophanim, she called herself Saria. She had the empty eyes of someone who'd seen too much of both heaven and hell. But hey, the wheels see a lot of involvement ever since they made the good book of Ezekiel. She took the form of an incredibly tall woman with shock white hair and skin to match. If her goal was to blend in, she'd missed the mark by a fair margin. "What can I do for you, sister?" "You know you can't call me that anymore." "I do, which is why you can appreciate my surprise at your presence here." "Someone is killing angels. 3 so far." "And why is that my problem?" "They were once your brothers and sisters. You owe them a debt of loyalty." "Oh, do I?" "You served for millennia with these angels. Are you telling me you feel nothing for them?" "Not particularly. Hard to get the warm feelings for the tools your father used to throw you out of your home." "That's not fair, and you know it." "I do, but hey, life's not fair, and that's by design. We can make it worth your while." "Unlikely." "Does this sway you at all?" A still smoldering feather was delicately placed on my desk. "See, every angel's wings are unique to the individual." Raguel. "My only advocate when the decision was made to throw me out. He resisted to the point of almost following me out the door." "Well, now that does change things." "We went looking for whispers. You don't find an angel killer by shaking hands. You find them by crawling through the cracks in the world, listening to the things that scrape against the edges of silence. Something with the stones to kill 3 angels, and their identity is still a mystery, is not a being you're going to find in the yellow pages." "We hit 3 spots that night. An infernal betting den behind a funeral home, a dryad-run speakeasy-style dive bar, and a cursed laundromat where ghosts folded up shirts that no one ever picked up. All long shots, but information flowed through these forgotten places and we had to listen. With all the usual spots not bearing fruit, I had only one place left to check. Not a place I really ever wanted to go, but the only place I could guarantee there would be some actionable intel. And that's how we ended up at the Bolt. We approached the Bolt through a back alley that smelled of cat urine and old oil. On the surface, the club looked like a condemned car factory. Rusted doors, broken windows, a hand-painted sign half falling off the side of the building, hanging by a thread. Most people passed it without a second glance, and that was exactly the point. Once you stepped inside, the veil dropped. Black marble floors, soft gold light dripping down from an ornate, ancient chandelier in an immaculate condition. Velvet booths in crescent shapes scattered the lounge that we walked into. The scent of frankincense and roses pleasantly caressed my nose as I walked through the door. Every breath hummed with music that seemed piped in from another world. Low jazz expertly mixed with something ancient. The kind of music that makes your sins feel eloquent. The bolt was top class beneath a trash bag exterior. Thatcher built it that way on purpose. See, most people think monsters like to wallow in filth. That mostly comes from the popular tales from a bygone era. They just don't, especially not when they get older. Not when they're tired of the hunt and just want a clean place to sit. That's what the bolt represented to all distinguished monsters. Sanctuary. I've never raised a blade in here, not once. Not that I couldn't, but I owed the place, and I respected what they were doing here to a point. You see, the bolt runs on blood. Human blood. That much is true, but not the kind pulled from a screaming throat. Thatcher's suppliers are a syndicate of pacifist vampires, old ones. Older than the myth of Dracula. Most of them are older than the invention of steel. They operate Veinline, a multinational blood bank hidden behind several layers of shell corporations. Discreet collection from donors who sign away a pint or two in exchange for big checks and an NDA. It's all legal, mostly. The blood is screened, cooled, and categorized by blood type and even emotional state. Joyful AB negative is apparently a big hit in Vienna this month. Thatcher keeps his taps behind locked, enchanted doors. No sipping from the source. No humans harmed. If anyone breaks that rule, they disappear into a locked freezer labeled January. I asked him once what was in there. Mistakes, he'd said. We saw Thatcher in the upstairs lounge. He was one of Dr. Frankenstein's early models. He didn't get any ink in Mary Shelley's book, but the good doctor did in fact make more than one. His earlier prototypes didn't feel much, didn't speak much, didn't write poetry. They broke things, fast and violently. Thatcher was one of those. The ones the doctor had buried under ice and forgot. He was patched together from old war meat. Half of his face was a melted mess, and the other half was way too pretty for his own good. Wore sunglasses indoors to hide the flickering blue glow of unstable reanimation in his pupils. In the upstairs lounge, the floor-to-ceiling windows showed a moonless skyline, fake stars projected onto the glass. He was dressed sharply in a black waistcoat and a gold tie. One of his hands, stitched and reinforced with bone plating, was holding a glass of Bordeaux, or something that looked like it. He raised a mismatched eyebrow when he saw me approach. You're not bleeding. You must need information. His voice had a soft, scratchy echo from the broken jigsaw puzzle that made up his vocal cords. Spot on. Saria sat beside me, visibly tense. She wasn't used to the warmth and luxury of this place. Angels never are. It took me a while when I first came here, too. Holiness doesn't know how to relax. She eyed the bar where an ogre bartender in a well-fitted suit was pouring a viscous red drink for a troll in a tux. This place shouldn't exist. That's the idea, Thatcher smirked. Saria brought Thatcher up to speed on the killings, the mutilations, the sigils. I dropped Remiel's charred feather on the table and watched the light catch the burned edges. Thatcher stared at it for an uncomfortable while, meaningfully silent, and then he spoke in a low tone. Cale. That was a name I hadn't heard in a long, long time. Cale had fallen with my older brother in Heaven's first dust-up. He's not working alone either. That caught me off guard. Cale had been a megalomaniac, never the team type. Who could he be working with? Thatcher leaned back, body shifting unnaturally from his patchwork construction. A cabal. Old school believers. Call themselves the Counting Choir. Formed from excommunicated clerics, rogue archivists, a few Nephilim. They believe in their prophecy that they can kick God out of this reality. They call it the Tallyman sequence. That was probably the most I'd ever heard Thatcher say in one go. Saria hissed, "Heresy, blasphemy. Is there any plausibility into their prophecy?" "Doesn't matter. They believe it. They're trying it. They're killing your angels. The Cabal is helping Kale gather the pieces. Ritual components. Your friends. From what I've heard and seen from the Tallyman sequence, it could be real. But it doesn't just kill angels, it replaces them. A new hierarchy. One Kale is designing from scratch." He poured another glass. The strain from the length of the conversation was getting obvious on his face, or faces. "I don't like what he's doing. It's dangerous, messy, breaking the balance." "The balance you profit from," Saria said coldly. Thatcher turned toward her slowly. "We don't hurt humans. We don't hurt angels. We don't hurt demons. Not because I care. I don't. This balance is what keeps the peace on this world. Yes, we profit, but we provide a civilization-level service." Saria didn't have an answer for that. Before we left, Thatcher pulled me aside. "Abandoned printing press factory, East Industrial District, Kale's base of operations. That's where they do their rituals. Any idea which rituals I'd be walking into?" "The ones where angels lose their wings." Factory was easy enough to find. A dilapidated single-story factory nestled comfortably among its much larger neighbors. Looking through my windshield at the weather-eaten red brick factory, I spoke. "We don't know what's waiting for us in there. Best to play this slow. Follow my lead, stay on your toes." Saria's angelic face pinched in annoyance. "You can't give me orders anymore, Raguel." The vitriol she put on my former angel name stung a bit. "You came to me for help because you knew I could handle this. If you're rethinking your position, you can get out of the car and I'll head back to my office." She didn't have an answer to that. Ophanim were typically messengers, not quite as suited to combat as most classes of angels. Fine. We worked our way across the cracked asphalt to the nearest corner of the building. Creeping along the side of the factory, down the damp alleyway, we neared a side entrance. The rusted door opened just slightly. No guard, no visible spells, no security. I'd love to believe it was just an oversight, but I had long since outgrown that kind of naivety. Left with no other real choice, I slipped in through the cracked door to avoid any rusted squealing, and Saria followed close behind. Inside the factory, we were in what looked like some kind of shipping or receiving area. The atmosphere was oppressive. Dimly lit from some lone distant light bulb hanging on like the last soldier in a surrounded fort, the shadows cast by the scattered crates had a solid quality, like they were just waiting to spring forward as soon as that last bulb gave up the ghost. Sarah and I snuck across the factory, footsteps silent on the dust-covered floor. When we made it out of the shipping area, what we saw froze me in place. Huddled around a blood-red flame on a black altar were the grotesque caricatures of my fallen brothers. Black skeletal wings attached to seared flesh, heaving in labored breaths. The altar intrigued me. Unfamiliar sigils adorned the black marble. I heard Saria's soft gasp behind me as she too saw these abominations. The sound had no sooner left her lips than all three horrifying heads snapped around to glare right at us with black, bottomless eyes. The first monster leapt forward, too fast. It tackled me through the rotting crates behind us and back into the shipping area we came in from, the other two following close behind. The blow knocked the handle of my holy sword from its scabbard in my waistband. Reaching out, I grabbed it just before I let it go out of reach. The moment my hand touched the jeweled handle, a fiery light blade bathed the surroundings in a brilliant glow, only to be dimmed again when I buried the blade up to the hilt in the monstrosity's back. A scream ripped from its horrific fanged mouth before going still. Heaving the now still bulk of my former brother off of me, I leapt to my feet. The second monster was still coming. Wait, there was just one. Where was the other one? I glanced to where Saria should have been, and all I saw was a mess of broken crates. The distraction cost me as a skeletal wing pierced my upper chest, pain exploding from the wound, clouding my vision momentarily. I swung my blade and dismembered the wing. Shrugging off the loss of the appendage, the monster swung a clawed hand aimed at my midsection. I dodged, barely, the claws ripping through the fabric of my shirt. Closing the distance, I brought my blade down, stabbing the monster in the chest. It fell without a noise. No time to lose, I sprinted to the empty space where Saria should have been, following the path of destruction left by the last beast to a hole in the outside wall of the factory. Bursting out of the building into the parking lot, I took in the scene in front of me. Saria with her own light blade hanging by her hip, hair disheveled, face bloodied, one arm completely gone. She looked spent, exhausted. The remaining monster holding her in the air and rearing back for a bite that would add another angel to their body count. I acted quickly, approaching the monster from behind and beheading it before it brought those lethal fangs down onto the Ophanim. "You okay?" I asked Saria. "Do I look okay?" she sneered. Had me there. Stupid question. "Can you walk?" "Yes." We slowly made our way back into the factory. I dragged the monster back into the building. We didn't need a random passerby to stumble onto that. With the monsters collected in the shipping area, we went back to where we first saw them, and what we saw made both of us freeze. Nothing. No altar, no flame. The only thing left was a note on the floor written in Enochian. "This isn't over." We rushed back to the shipping area to find the monster bodies gone. There hadn't even been a sound. "Great. Now what are we going to tell your superiors? We literally have nothing to show for what went on here tonight," I told Saria. "We aren't completely empty-handed," she smirked. "What are you talking about?" Using her remaining arm, she yanked the piece of burned angel wing out of my chest. In the heat of the moment, I had completely forgotten that it was still in there. Pain exploded from the wound yet again, and it almost brought me to my knees. "We do have this,"